Going on political media. So John Gray is back in the news, but not really for anything negative. I think if you follow the John Gray story, not the cheating on the wife and buying his wife a $200,000 car, not the voicemails that came out from the mistress, or the fact that he put the mistress up in the same hotel as his where he and his wife were staying. Not any of those scandals that has been involved in over the past year or two. But there was something else. Ryan Carpenter um, was the pastor of a church called Redemption, and at this church, he decided to semi-retire or transition. He transitioned from the Greenville, South Carolina church, and he decided to go out to California, to San Jose. He took over a big church out there called Jubilee or something or another. Had about 14,000 members. So he was chasing the money, in my opinion. He won't say that that's what he was doing, but come on. That's what you're doing. You leave your church, which is a great sized church. It's a mega church in South Carolina. And then you go to a bigger, even bigger church over in San Jose. For what reason? To leave all your members and go to a whole bunch of strangers. You want to be in California. So in doing that, this is just a little backstory for those that don't know the story. Pastor John Gray, he was at Lakewood with Joel Osteen. I guess he was one of the pastors on the roster there. So he was handpicked by Ryan Carpenter to take over the South Carolina church. And they had a big to-do, a big event, with a lot of gospel stars, a lot of preachers showed up. Joel Osteen even showed up. And it was a big to-do. Everyone was excited. John Gray was going to be able to pastor his own church. Everybody loved John Gray. He was just so different from the rest of the pastors or mega church pastors out there. And then chaos hit. Scandals that I named in the beginning of this, but also there began to be a dispute between Ron Carpenter and John Gray as to the debt that the property holds, because it's a huge church. I think there's a gym on the property as well, I believe. I think that's what I heard. But there was debt on the property, and it seems to be an argument between the two as to who holds the debt now, or who's responsible for the debt. So overall, it just became a money issue. So they've been in the midst of a lawsuit over the past year about that. John Gray's team or his attorneys say that they feel as though it's perhaps a fight over members rather than a legitimate fight over the debt or the property. The church now called, it was called Redemption. Now it's called, what do you call it? The church now used to be called Redemption. Now it's called Relentless, is what John Gray calls it, Relentless Church. I don't think Pastor Ron Carpenter expected John Gray to grow the membership. I'm assuming that's what I've heard, and retain members and all that. But there's a few disgruntled members, of course. So this is what has happened. Ron Carpenter has come back to South Carolina. He's sat down and done mediation with John Gray, and they've settled their whole lawsuit. John Gray's keeping the church. However, from my sources, they're saying that John had to pay something. They're not disclosing what was paid, but he's getting it to keep the church. But what Ron Carpenter has done, he has decided to create another location, Redemption Church East. So he has rented out the convention center, which is literally, it's so funny, literally, Relentless Church, his old church, which is now Relentless, run by John Gray, is here. There's an airport runway here, and right on the other side of the airport runway is the convention center. So they're literally right across. They can see each other's, perhaps see each other's locations. You can see his old location. Ron actually wants to eventually buy the convention center, since there's plans for a new convention center downtown Greenville. So it's quite an interesting story. It's interesting to see how these churches and sometimes they just get into so much mess as it relates to finances and members. So Some people think it's a sneaky move that Ron is coming back because a lot of the members that didn't stay with John or stay in the church are now going to go and be at Redemption. Go back to Redemption, the new location. So it's kind of a member grab, if you will. Very smart member grab by Redemption because Ryan's only going to be at this location once a month. All the other weeks he's going to be in San Jose at the new church. But it's a way to pull members from John while he's smiling and saying he apologizes for how ugly this got and he'd love to work with John in the future. I think we all know what that he has plans. And with all the scandal going on with John Gray, I think he's going to probably end John Gray's reign and end up taking most of his members too once we go back to filling up churches, I guess. So that's just a quick update on John Gray and Ron Carpenter's church past the debacle that they've been having. So it's quite interesting. So I'll be following this story to see what happens, give some more details on it. Subscribe, like, comment, and until next time, peace out.